Hi everybody, well I haven't recorded a video about PUBG in an awful long time, and in fact I've missed the last PUBG big update 38.2, but what has happened since I've been away is the transfer from supporting PlayStation 4s and Xbox Ones to now PUBG can only be played on PC, PlayStation 5s, Xbox Series S's and Xbox Series X's. That's right, we've got next gen only support and we finally moved on. So what you're seeing in this video is gameplay on my Xbox Series S. Now it's always difficult to really show you what's going on and give you a feel of the game like this, but let me just say that I've been playing PUBG since 2017, first on an Xbox and an Xbox One, then on an Xbox One S, then on a PlayStation 4, then on to an Xbox Series S, which I'm playing on now, and a little bit on PC as well. Lucky enough to have a gaming PC, although because I'm no good with keyboard and mouse, console and gamepad is my weapon of choice for playing PUBG. So if you're watching this video thinking and asking, so what's it like? Is it a better experience now? Well, if you're coming from PlayStation 4 or Xbox One and you've just bought a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X or Xbox Series X, this will blow you away. In fact, I remember when I got my Xbox Series S and played PUBG, that blew me away back then as well, because you'll be able to get 60 frames per second at least at 1080p, and even support for 4K and 1440p as well, and it feels incredibly smooth. It feels like a different game when you're coming from old gen to next gen. If, however, you've been playing PUBG on an Xbox Series S already, or an Xbox Series X already, or a PlayStation 5 already, the difference isn't as much, but it is noticeable. So what they've done in terms of improving performance is they've increased things like view distance, and they've also added some performance modes. So what that means in the case of Xbox, for example, I think this is the same for PlayStation as well, is that on the Xbox Series S, for example, you can choose to have frame rate priority mode. So that runs at 1080p, and that will give you 60 frames a second. Excuse me. And then you also then have resolution priority mode. So in resolution priority mode, you can run at 1440p at 60 frames a second. Now, from what I understand, on the Xbox Series X, you can run at 4K, which is 2160 at 60 frames a second. Same for the PlayStation 5. Actually, sorry, for PlayStation 5, it's 1440p at 60 frames a second. And if you've got a PlayStation 5 Pro, you can go at 4K 2160p at 60 frames a second. I would always recommend going for the frame rate priority, because that smoothness is fantastic. And what I've noticed is, if you'd asked me before I played on this next gen version, I'd have said, well, I'm pretty sure that my Xbox Series S goes along at 60 frames a second, or all the time when I'm playing PUBG. However, I don't think it did, because playing this now, it does feel a lot smoother, and that probably is to do with the consistency of hitting that 60 frames a second all of the time. You're not getting any frame drops or stutters or anything like that, and it feels very much like when you play on PC. The draw distance isn't the same as PC, and you'll have seen this at the beginning of this video. When I exit the plane, you don't get like all of the foliage appearing like you do a lot of the time on PC. So it's not exactly the same, but it's very, very similar and very, very smooth when you're moving around and driving around and doing that sort of stuff. Now, don't get excited about this gameplay. I don't get a chicken dinner. I was recording this fairly early in the day, actually, which meant that I couldn't get a solo game, so I jumped in as a solo squad. I did get to second place, I think, but you get into that situation, don't you, where when you're in the top 10, in the top 5 as a solo in squads, and if you do get to the top 2, which I think I did, and it was 3 versus 1, you as soon as the other team realise that there's only a solo player against them, you've had it and you die, which happens to me, although I could have probably made better work of it with some smoke grenades or something, but that's at the end. But what I thought I would do, what I would share with you as well, is in the description below this video, you'll see quite a few links to very old videos that I've recorded. There's a link to the very first recording I made of PUBG, which I think might even have been my first game. The problem was those first games on Xbox Ones, the black Xbox One, was that you couldn't record gameplay onto the Xbox One directly, or you could, but only 5 minutes. You couldn't record a whole game. And I think the way that I had to do it was I had to stream it to Twitch, then export it back to YouTube. So the quality is pretty low. However, what it will give you an idea is that it really did kind of almost look like a mobile game back then. There is one that I think is called PUBG on Xbox One Be Like, and it's a short video. Lots of these videos, I've put them to music, and that one really shows you what we had to put up with when this game first came out in 2017. So PUBG released in 2017 on early access on PC, and I can remember watching the likes of Shroud and Dr. Disrespect playing, and I was like, this guy, what's a battle royale first? Then kind of getting the idea of that, it's 100 to 1. All right, well that's pretty cool. And then like the military look, milsim look of PUBG, with AKs and M16s, and it's not science fiction at all, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty sure in 2017 the Call of Duty maybe had been something like Infinite Warfare, so very sci-fi. So this was a really grounded looking game, and watching Dr. Disrespect and Shroud play, you were just like, wow, this is amazing, this is so cool. And then I didn't have a gaming PC, but then the fantastic news came out that Xbox were going to have PUBG on their early, I think it's called the game preview program. So I was like, this is, oh my gosh. Now I didn't have an Xbox at the time, I had a PlayStation 4. So what I did was I borrowed my son's Xbox One. I think I did it. I borrowed that for a while just to play PUBG, and in the end, I ended up buying an Xbox One S just to play PUBG. And in those early days, it was absolutely terrible. Textures wouldn't load in. You'd hit the ground with your parachute, and the building would just be like a jelly mold, and you'd fall through the floor. If you were driving around and you go over a bridge, you'd fall through the bridge because it hadn't loaded in properly. In those days as well, is you would have clothing on the floor. So the loot, like the weapons, the ammo, would sometimes be, well, a lot of the time be hidden under clothing. But it was quite cool. I wish they'd bring that back actually, so you could change your outfit during the game, which is really interesting. However, and it used to crash every 4 games if you didn't restart your Xbox. Every 4 games, it would crash in the middle of the game. However, the magic PUBG source was there, and you played it, and you were like, there's something about this. And when you would get into the top 10s and the top 5s, or win, you would get those PUBG shakes. You get that adrenaline pumping through you, and you're like, this is like nothing I've played before. Then you would play with friends, and some of the greatest times I've ever had playing video games with friends has been in those those PUBG games, having the bitter sweetness of losing, coming seconds and thirds and stuff, playing game after game in an evening and never winning, and then you get that chicken dinner with your mates, and you're like, wow, this is so cool. Or you're the last one in the squad, and you're in the top 5, and they're all screaming at you about where the enemies are, and you're just like, be quiet. So many good memories with so many good friends like Ross and dearly departed Andy and Keith and Matt and so many others that I can't mention all the Hot Drop team and all those ones. So absolutely fantastic. But so here we are, 2025, 8 years later. The game is still going strong on PC, maybe not so much on console, but it's free to play now. Highly recommend it if you've never had a go with PUBG. Give it a go. And I know I, for one, will probably be giving it, diving in again. It's the sort of game that you have to play regularly, like at least a few times a week, in order to stay sharp with it, because there's no aim assist on console, so you're playing it with gamepad can be a bit of a challenge. You've got to kind of not necessarily know the maps, but know the tactics to use in specific situations. Like in this game, when it gets to the final circle, what I should have been doing is I did have at least one smoke grenade, so I should have used that for some mobile cover, which I didn't do. So all these things, all these tactical solutions you need to have in your brain ready to use at a moment's notice when you're in these sorts of situations. So in the description below this video you'll find lots of links to old videos with PUBG. Most of them are set to some corny music, but what would happen is I play PUBG, I get incredibly inspired, and then I would take some music and then put it on, but those videos never get any views because they get copyright struck by the owners of the music. But I enjoy doing them because sometimes they kind of encapsulate some of the feeling that you get when you're playing PUBG. So anyway, thanks to everybody who's played with me over the last 8 years, and here's to the 10-year anniversary in a couple of years' time. And yeah, if you haven't played it already, check it out. PUBG, one of, if not the greatest video game of all time. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon.